The High Priestess opens her system screen, its faint glow casting light across the table, and addresses Tangan with measured words. Looking back over all the information they have gathered, she explains that a troubling pattern has begun to form. The strange mental manipulation, the sudden emergence of the kings of original sin, and the survival of the two mysterious girls all seem to carry the shadow of Suyang behind them. She reflects on their earlier suspicions, recalling how they once believed Andal to be the one orchestrating these events. Yet even after Andal was sealed away, such incidents continued without pause, as if the true hand behind them remained free. Her tone sharpens slightly as she continues. Since the battle in the Dragon Spirit Secret Realm, Suyang has vanished without a trace. Now Makiko and Valeria are also missing. The timing and nature of these disappearances seem too connected to be a coincidence, and she admits the entire situation feels deeply suspicious. Tangan listens before responding that he has not been free from suspicion himself. Yet, in his mind, Suyang is still only at his fourth revolution, and it is hard to imagine someone at that level being capable of pulling all of this off. The High Priestess meets his reasoning with calm certainty, suggesting the possibility that Suyang could be the Lord of the Abyss. The statement draws an immediate reaction. Tangan's hands slam onto the table, the impact rattling the surface as he blurts out that such a thing cannot be true. She explains that she once thought the same, but after a careful investigation, she has almost completely ruled out that possibility. Tangan exhales sharply and tells her not to make such jokes. The High Priestess continues, speaking with steady conviction. In her view, even if Suyang is not the Lord of the Abyss, the connection between him and that realm is deep and complex. She raises the possibility that they may even possess the rare privilege to command the kings of original sin. If such authority truly rests in his hands, then defeating them and claiming the reverse sin artifacts would be as simple for him as turning over a hand. Her thoughts shift toward the reach of the shrine, an influence that stretches across the entire world. Under ordinary circumstances, they should have received at least some trace of information about these events. Yet 3 reverse sin artifacts have already surfaced, and not a single report has reached them. She reasons that there can be only one explanation: the person who has obtained these artifacts is not in the mortal world at all, but somewhere within the abyss. Tangan leans forward slightly, thinking back to her earlier claim that the artifacts may have fallen into Suyang's possession. The conclusion now seems clear: she must have arrived at that belief through this same chain of reasoning. Still, a gap remains in his understanding. If Suyang is not the Abyss King, he cannot grasp how the man could possibly hold control over one of the Lords of Original Sin. A quiet sigh escapes the High Priestess as she shakes her head. She admits that her theory remains speculation for now, the evidence unable to form a fully logical and complete chain. Even so, she notes that the unusual and persistent attention of the Elf Kingdom only deepens her suspicions from another angle. Tangan lowers himself back into his seat, clasping both hands together in thought. He agrees that the elves are paying far too much attention to Suyang, almost as if he holds a secret they are desperate to uncover. In that moment, something clicks in his mind. He realizes that the answer might lie in the Dragon Spirit Secret Realm. The High Priestess agrees with his realization, stating that everything began in the Dragon Spirit Secret Realm. She suspects that Suyang must have obtained some form of inheritance there, one that forged a link between him and the Abyss. This connection, she believes, granted him a transcendent status. Using that status, he could have controlled the kings of original sin, claimed the reverse sin artifacts, and even directed those kings to attack Tokugawa and others, an action that allowed him to save the 2 girls who knew his secret. In her mind, the logic is sound. Tangan acknowledges the reasoning, pointing out that it makes sense to him as well. He reminds her that he himself is a survivor of Lucifer's attack. Still, he cannot help but wonder why Suyang would keep such a matter from them instead of sharing it. The High Priestess answers that Suyang must have his own reasons. She admits to wanting to meet him in person, narrowing her eyes with a private thought. Next time, she intends to get the truth from him, no more guessing. She then shifts her focus back to the larger picture. For now, she says, advancing the world quest remains the highest priority. If they are to conquer the Abyss, the strength of the Elven Kingdom will be indispensable. Tangan rises to his feet, extending his hand toward her. He tells her there is no need for further words, as he knows what must be done. His expression hardens as he declares that Longia will withdraw from the Crusade Alliance. Yet this will not mean surrendering the goal of conquering the Abyss. He vows that he and his warriors will continue honing their strength, becoming even more powerful than before. Tangan turns sharply and declares that even without outside help, Longia will slay a Lord of Original Sin and take a reverse sin artifact with their own hands. To him, Longshians never give up. He strides into the massive corridor beyond the chamber. The Knights of Longia stand ready along the sides, their eyes fixed on him. He calls out to them, addressing them as brothers and telling them it is time to move out. Without hesitation, they follow, their footsteps fading into the distance. In the meantime, Tokugawa enters the temple. Hesitant, he approaches the high priestess. She remains at the doorway, her gaze lingering on Tangan and his knights disappearing beyond the corridor. Inwardly, she reflects that this must be the true spirit of Longia, and she silently wishes that victory and fortune follow them. She then looks toward Tokugawa, and her tone carries a touch of satire as she notes that Mr. Tang and the others have already left, asking if he plans to inform the elves. Tokugawa stiffens, caught off guard, and stammers in response. He quickly agrees, saying he will contact them right away. The elves arrive not long after, and with them come all the Earth heroes except those from Longia. They gather in the Temple of Holy Light, seated around the same table where the earlier talks took place. The royal family's ministers and many others fill the surrounding stands, eager to witness the meeting in person. The elves carry themselves with open arrogance. Prince Andal, sitting as though the temple belongs to him, remarks to the high priestess that he has heard the Longia warriors are gone, adding a smug compliment to her for what he calls a job well done. The high priestess shows clear disdain in her expression, though she keeps her voice steady, telling him they should proceed to the agenda. Prince Andal leans back with his hands behind his head, placing his feet carelessly on the sacred table. He dismisses the formalities, claiming that rules and regulations are a bother, and tells her to simply be quiet and listen to his terms. Carl notices the scene, thinking to himself that without the queen present, the young prince is showing his true colors. Lady Carolina murmurs what an arrogant loser. The high priestess closes her eyes, holding back her irritation. She cannot stand him for even a second longer, yet she still asks in steady words what conditions the second prince wishes to lay before them. Prince Andal begins laying out his demands with an air of entitlement. He states that since the humans had come to the elves for help, the distribution of spoils must favor the elves. According to him, the elf world should receive 60%, leaving only 40% for the humans. The high priestess, eyes still closed in quiet restraint, answers that there is no objection to this arrangement. Encouraged, the prince moves to his second demand. He declares that of the remaining 4 reverse sin weapons yet to be claimed, 3 must go to the elves. The statement sends a spark of outrage across the table. Carolina rises sharply to her feet, her voice cutting through the hall as she accuses him of going too far. Poker also stands, pointing out that the reverse sin weapons are vital for defeating the final enemy, and accuses the elves of trying to monopolize them. The prince meets their anger with a smirk, clearly entertained by their reaction. He asks what could possibly be so outrageous, reminding them that 3 reverse sin weapons have already appeared and, by his count, the humans already possess 4 in total. In his view, it is the humans who are getting a massive bargain. Carolina responds coldly, calling his argument blatant sophistry. Augustus then rises to say they do not even know where those 3 weapons are, so claiming humans hold them as meaningless. The prince leans further back, legs still resting on the sacred table, and responds without care. Whoever holds them is irrelevant to him, as they belong to humans either way, and they can find them on their own. Poker, Carolina, and Augustus speak out together in frustration, their voices overlapping. The crowd in the stands begins to stir, and angry shouts rise above the tension. Some cry out that they cannot allow the elves to walk over them. Others warn that even the strongest teams have already failed, and conquering the abyss alone is impossible. Another voice adds that if they refuse the terms, the elves will simply withdraw their help. The weight of the situation presses over the hall. Everyone knows that if the world quest fails, the fate of all will be sealed. After a long and heated exchange, the human side finally bends to the demands of the elf world. An official alliance between humans and elves is declared, and the date for the first joint crusade against the abyss is set for 1 month later. The decision sends ripples across both worlds, marking the beginning of a tense cooperation built on reluctant compromise. Several days later, the bustling heart of Dragon City, capital of Longia, becomes the stage for an unexpected scene. From the towering teleportation gate at the city's center, a bright pulse of energy fades to reveal Elf Prince Andal stepping forward. Carl follows close behind, with a full escort of elf bodyguards moving in disciplined formation. The prince lifts a hand to his mouth, glancing at the lively streets and crowded markets. In a tone dripping with annoyance, he remarks on how irritatingly vibrant the Longia capital appears, though he still seems faintly impressed. The sudden appearance of elves draws immediate attention. Locals pause mid-step, eyes widening in surprise. The sight is unusual enough to spark murmurs in a growing crowd around the gate. Among them, a small girl walking with her mother stops in her tracks. Pointing toward the newcomers, she tells her mother to look, excitedly identifying them as elves. The child runs forward with pure curiosity, calling out a cheerful greeting to the prince and his knights. Prince Andal and Carl meet her smile with expressions of open disgust. One of the guards steps forward and strikes his heel on the ground in a sharp motion. A wave of force bursts outward, sending the little girl tumbling through the air before hitting the ground. Gasps ripple through the watching crowd. The mother rushes to her daughter, kneeling beside her and asking if she is hurt. Anger and disbelief fill her voice as she demands to know what the elves think they are doing. The guard responds coldly, stating that he had heard Longia was considered the most courteous nation among humans. Yet in his view, these lowly commoners have dared to look directly upon the second prince, an act he finds unacceptable. Andal and his squad close the distance to the frightened mother and child, their eyes filled with cold disdain. One of the guards delivers a sharp order, demanding that the two kneel before the second prince like lowly commoners unworthy of his presence. The atmosphere in the square turns heavier, the crowd frozen between fear and outrage. Far away, Suyang observes the unfolding scene through the shifting glow of his demonic screen. The moment the guard's command reaches his ears, his patience cracks. The tension in his face sharpens into deadly seriousness. Lucifer stands just behind him, silent yet aware of the rage building in him. Without hesitation, Suyang turns to her and announces his intent. She questions where he is headed, but he is already moving. The ancient sword rests across his shoulder, one hand gripping it with casual certainty, while the other slips into his pocket. In a voice thick with cold resolve, he declares their destination as Dragon City, and their purpose is simple, to kill a few dogs. Lucifer falls into step behind him without another word. Back in Dragon City, the adventurers of Longia watching the scene can no longer hold back. One of them steps forward, shouting at the elves, demanding to know how these feudal lords dare to run wild in Longia. The adventurer insists that the ones who should be kneeling and begging for forgiveness are the elves themselves, calling them cowards. The words reach Andal, who slowly turns his head toward the man, his gaze dark with anger. One of the elf guards reacts first, wearing a smirk of contempt as he tells the adventurer to know his place, calling him worthless trash. The guard leaps forward in a blur of movement, his fist slamming down on the adventurer's head with crushing force. The impact drives the man into the ground, leaving him motionless in the dust. The guard stands over his fallen opponent and coldly declares that this is the true gap in power. Raising his hand to his face, he points at the man and says such is the fate of ants who dare to defy them. The mother, trembling, clutches her daughter tightly to her chest, her voice breaking as she pleads with the elves not to take their lives. The mother squeezes her eyes shut, her voice trembling as she pleads for mercy. She explains that her daughter is not even level 5 and cannot be revived if killed, begging the elves to spare them. Before another word can be spoken, a sudden flash of energy streaks across the sky. A powerful voice echoes above the square, thundering with the words, "How dare you?" In the next heartbeat, the energy slams downward like a lightning strike, exploding on the spot where the elves stand. The force sends most of them flying in all directions. The mother and daughter, despite being in the middle of the chaos, remain unharmed, protected within a glowing shield raised by the newly arrived knights of Longia. Among them stands the legendary Tangan, his presence radiating command. His first order is directed at his men, telling them to evacuate all civilians immediately. The knights respond without hesitation, moving quickly to clear the square. Tangan then turns his full attention to the elves, his gaze sharp and unyielding. He demands to know if they were the ones who harmed the people of Longia. The heavily bruised elf guard staggers to his feet, one hand clutching his stomach, and responds with defiance, asking what if it was. The question earns no verbal reply. Tangan draws back his fist, golden energy crackling around it, and launches a devastating strike. The punch tears through the air, creating a roaring whirlwind and a blinding flash of golden light. The blast swallows the elf guard completely, ripping through everything in its path with unstoppable force. Prince Andal's expression changes instantly. The arrogance drains from his face, replaced by a flicker of fear at the overwhelming pressure Tangan exudes. Karl steps forward and plants himself between the prince and the threat. With his royal staff raised, he conjures a barrier of shimmering light, warning the prince to remain cautious. The ground behind the elves lies shattered and torn apart, the aftermath of Tangan's strike leaving deep scars across the street. Only the section where Prince Andal and Karl stand remains intact, protected by the shimmering barrier Karl had raised in time. From behind his guard, Prince Andal regains his composure and calls out to Tangan, demanding to know if this is how Longia treats its guests. Tangan keeps his hands folded behind his back, his voice calm but unyielding, explaining that Longia shows respect to those who show respect in return. He then asks the prince if his actions so far have shown even the slightest respect for Longia. The prince responds without shame, claiming that etiquette is a matter reserved for nobles and dismissing the earlier victims as mere peasants. In his view, there was no reason for Tangan to cause such a fuss over them. Tangan's expression grows harder. He states that in Longia, all people are equal and there are no peasants or nobles. He reminds the prince that it was the elves who continuously targeted Longia in the Holy City, and now they arrive here uninvited. raising the question of their true purpose. Carl chooses to answer in the prince's place, his tone laced with scorn. He questions Tangan's nerve before stating that Suyang stands accused of 3 crimes by the Elven Kingdom. The first accusation is taming the Black Dragon without permission from the Elven royal family, an act they see as harboring sinister intent. The second is killing Prince Erich and several gifted Elven nobles within the Dragon Spirit secret realm. The third is abducting Princess Lilith of the Elven Kingdom. Carl adds that the Queen herself has already issued a kill-on-sight order for Suyang, making their purpose in Longia clear. A priest standing beside Tangan can no longer remain silent. He shouts, calling Carl shameless and insisting that Suyang tamed the Black Dragon through his own strength, without needing any royal approval. He demands to know if Carl even hears the absurdity of his own words. Before we continue, if you have liked this recap, hit that like button as today's goal is 1,500 likes. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. Back to the story, Carl answers the priest without hesitation, stating that the Black Dragon is classified by the royal family as a seed of calamity, a wicked creature that must be destroyed on sight. He questions what the priest even is, to dare speak to him in such a manner. The priest snaps, beginning a sharp retort, but Tangan places a steady hand on his shoulder, silently signaling for him to hold his temper. Tangan then addresses Carl directly, stating that if the elves have come in search of Suyang, their efforts will be wasted, as no one in Longia knows his whereabouts. Carl answers with cool arrogance, claiming they have no need for Longia to hand Suyang over. Instead, he demands unrestricted access to the entire territory, declaring that the elves will search every corner themselves, beginning with Dragon City. One of Longia's knights cannot hold back his fury. His voice cuts through the air, calling this demand an outrageous insult to their nation, especially here in their own capital. Carl responds by lifting his royal staff high into the sky. Waves of green energy ripple outward, interwoven with golden sparks of light cascading from its tip. His tone is filled with challenge as he dares them to try and stop him if they believe they have the strength. Tangan's stance shifts instantly, his entire posture radiating deadly intent. His voice hardens as he declares that a man may endure much, but this crosses the line. If this is the path the elves choose, then battle is the only answer. Power surges from him in a violent burst. Lightning like arcs of energy dance around his frame as he unlocks Divine Power Rank B, Extreme Divinity Effect. The release causes base strength and attributes to spike tenfold, the sheer pressure of it shaking the ground beneath him. In the next heartbeat, Tangan channels all of that raging power into his right fist. Flames coil and twist around it, taking the form of a colossal dragon. The technique, Extreme Dao Dragon Du's Destruction Fist, erupts forward, hurling the flaming beast straight toward Carl and Prince Andal. The impact is a thunderous explosion, yet Carl is already moving. His royal staff glows with divine radiance as he calls upon the blessing of the goddess. A shining barrier manifests just in time, the flaming dragon slamming against it with earth-shaking force. The shield holds, sparing both Carl and the prince from the attack's full devastation. Carl's lips curl into a confident smirk. He remarks that after such a heavy attack, Tangan is now full of openings. He lowers the royal staff and then straightens toward its target, releasing the technique known as Holy Tree Punishment. From the glowing tip of the staff, thick ethereal branches sprout into existence, twisting forward at high speed. They spear through the air and pierce deep into Tangan's body. The sharp cracks of impact are followed by the sound of his pained breath. Blood gushes from the wounds, draining rapidly as his strength collapses. His body slams onto the ground, and another mouthful of blood spills onto the shattered stone beneath him. The priest and a knight from Longia rush toward their fallen commander, desperation etched across their faces. The sight makes it clear Tangan has taken a devastating blow, and for the moment, it seems he is finished. Carl declares that the power of a divine artifact is beyond the imagination of mere mortals, and that any resistance against it is meaningless. The arrogance in his tone leaves no doubt that he believes the battle already won. A faint change in the air draws his attention upward. He senses something descending from above. In the clouded sky, massive dark portal blossoms open, shadows spilling out in all directions. From within that darkness, 2 figures emerge. One is a man in a heavy robe, the other is a woman whose presence commands the very air around her. The crowd ripples with murmurs and whispers, recognizing the woman instantly. She is the Lady Lord of Pride, Lucifer. Prince Andal's composure crumbles, and he instinctively grips Carl's shoulder. He asks for protection in a tone that betrays his fear. Carl reassures him, claiming that with the artifact in their possession, there is no reason to fear her. He stares on Lucifer, his mind racing with thoughts of opportunity. He recalls their intelligence, which stated that once a Lord of Sin descends into the mortal realm, their divine strength drops from God tier to demigod tier. If she is truly only demigod tier now, and the elves wield a divine artifact, then perhaps, just perhaps, they can slay the strongest lord of sin here and now. Tangan forces himself upright, blood still staining his lips, yet his focus sharpens. He gazes at the dark figure above, and he thinks to himself that it truly is Lucifer. The timing troubles him, and he wonders why she has chosen to appear at this exact moment. A nearby knight leans toward him and quietly voices the concern that she might have come to kill either the elves or them. Tangan's attention shifts to the robed man standing at her side. Something about the man's presence feels cloaked, his identity hidden by a force Tangan cannot immediately pierce. Suspicion takes root in his mind. Could it be who he thinks it is? The thought sharpens into certainty. He realizes that with everyone's eyes fixed on Lucifer, his own movements may go unnoticed. He knows his attack range is short, barely a meter, and under normal circumstances, the elves' heightened caution would risk making him miss. Yet this moment, with all focus drawn upward, is the perfect setup, and if needed he can sneak an attack on the elves. High above, the robed man turns to Lucifer and instructs her to sweep all the elven forces into her domain, and as for the second prince, he says the task will be his. Lucifer answers without hesitation, acknowledging that if this is the will of the Supreme King, it shall be done. She raises her hand and an immense pulse of black energy bursts forth, sweeping over the battlefield. The wave devours every elf in its path, dragging them into the depths of her dark domain. In the blink of an eye, only Prince Andal remains standing. The prince's composure shatters, and his eyes dart frantically across the now empty space as he calls out for Carl, for Captain Tassie, for the royal guards, his voice cracking in desperation. None answer. From just above him, the robed man descends slowly through the air. Suyang's voice cuts through the prince's panic, telling him not to waste his breath. All of those he calls for are already locked in battle with Lucifer, and no one will be coming to save him. Prince Andal fixes his eyes on the robed figure, demanding to know his identity and declaring himself as the second prince of the Elven Kingdom. He also questions the stranger's intentions. The man, Suyang, does not slow his approach. Instead, he rushes straight toward the prince with sudden speed. Panic flares across Andal's face. He shouts for Suyang to keep his distance while forming a defensive shield designed to block any attack below rank 8. The barrier materializes in an instant, but it proves useless. Suyang's fist smashes through it with a single blow, the force connecting directly to the prince's face. Bone and flesh twist under the impact, his features distorted as blood bursts from his mouth. The strike sends him hurtling through the air for nearly half a kilometer. Suyang moves like a thunderclap, matching the speed of sound. Before the prince can fall, Suyang appears above him, gripping him by the hair in midair. A brutal punch slams into the prince's gut, forcing another spray of blood mouth before his body is driven into the ground below. The prince lies sprawled on the shattered earth, his voice hoarse but defiant. He says that Suyang may kill him if he wishes, for he will be resurrected at the Elven Temple. He vows that the Elven legions will crush the abyss, ensuring that Suyang will never find peace, not even in death. His words turn venomous as he points toward the Longia knights, promising to report this incident to the queen and have the entire nation erased. One of the Longia knights watches him and mutters that the prince has lost his mind. Suyang draws his ancient sword, the blade catching the light with a cold gleam. He tells the prince it is unfortunate he will never get the chance to act on his threats. Andal stares in disbelief, struggling to accept what he is hearing. Suyang finishes his statement, comparing Andal's fate to that of his brother Erich. The prince begins to speak, uttering a few words, but the sound is cut short. Suyang's blade arcs downward in a clean, merciless strike, splitting Andal vertically from head to toe. The two halves of his body fall apart, lifeless. A notification appears before Suyang, stating that 250 energy points have been consumed. It declares that Andal Savaleya, second prince of the Elves, has been erased from existence, condemned to eternal oblivion with no chance of return. The gathered knights stand frozen in shock, their eyes wide as the reality sets in. The elf prince has vanished completely, leaving not even the faintest trace of his aura behind. Confused voices murmur through the group, wondering what exactly had just happened before their eyes. A red-haired knight speaks quietly, admitting that his focus had been pulled toward Lucifer's sudden appearance earlier, and because of that he had entirely failed to notice the presence of the robed stranger. He recalls that the man carried no overwhelming aura at all, yet somehow performed such a feat. The thought crosses his mind, could this mysterious figure actually be another Sin King? Behind Suyang, the black barrier Lucifer had erected begins to fade away, its dark energy dissolving into the air. The weakening shield suggests that the battle within has already reached its conclusion. Moments later, the domain collapses fully, and Lucifer steps out from the void. Her expression and stance make it clear she has not claimed victory. Carl emerges from the dissipating darkness as well, his ladder ringing out over the battlefield. He proclaims that the so-called strongest Sin King is nothing remarkable, scoffing at the idea that a mere demigod could hope to withstand the refined power of the elven divine craft. His tone turns boastful as he reassures the absent prince, reminding him of his earlier promise that with the divine artifact on their side, there was nothing to fear. But his words falter as he turns, expecting an answer. Silence meets him. Carl calls for Prince Andal again, scanning the area, but realization dawns too late. The aura of the second prince is gone, snuffed out completely. He is dead. Carl's eyes lock onto Suyang, and the recognition strikes like lightning. He demands to know what Suyang has done to the prince. Suyang lifts a hand and gives a lazy wave, the corners of his lips curling into a cold smile. He states that it was nothing more than killing a dog and wonders aloud why anyone would make such a fuss over it. He adds that Carl will be next. Carl only chuckles in response to his threat, his expression brimming with cold amusement. The divine staff in his hands rises, its golden light flaring brightly before releasing a volley of sharp energy beams. The blasts pierce through every knight in sight, both Elven and Longian, draining their souls in an instant and leaving behind nothing but brittle skeletons. He remarks that with Prince Andal already dead, there is no longer any risk of accidentally harming him. The staff lifts higher, and Carl calls forth the sacred tree judgment. More golden beams rain down, striking the remaining Elven knights. Their cries of pain echo across the battlefield as the divine energy tears through them. Carl's voice grows darker, declaring that all who dare to defy the sacred shall be offered as blood sacrifices, their life force serving as nourishment for the divine artifact. The golden beams continue to fire without pause, forcing the Longian warriors to retreat in chaos. The red-haired knight rushes forward, lifting Tangan onto his shoulder and cursing Carl as he orders the others to flee. Lucifer watches the slaughter unfold, her eyes narrowing as she shifts into a battle stance. She calls the elf archmage a heretic and warns him that their fight is far from finished. In the next moment, a concentrated beam of golden light shoots directly toward her. Carl announces that she has fallen into his trap, revealing that she was his only target from the very beginning. One hand presses firmly against his chest as he chants the words "liberate authority." Above his staff, golden energy gathers in violent, crackling arcs before launching a storm of beams toward her position. Lucifer reacts instantly, but the attack shifts into something far worse. Branches of solidified energy erupt from the beams, coiling around her limbs and torso. They bind her tightly, drawing her into a crushing hold from every side. She strains against them, unleashing her full power in an attempt to break free, but the harder she pushes, the tighter the bindings constrict. Carl's voice rose in triumph as he tells Lucifer to go to hell, declaring that the king of original sin will become nourishment for the branches of the holy tree. Before the final blow can land, Suyang moves. The ancient sword gleams in his grip as he charges forward, his figure a blur cutting through the chaos. Carl notices the motion and scoffs, telling Suyang that he is overestimating himself. Carl snaps his fingers and sends multiple golden energy beams, tearing through the air toward the approaching figure. The force pushes Suyang back at first, but he adapts instantly, weaving between the deadly streaks of light. His body twists in fluid motions, spinning, leaping midair, and dodging each beam with calculated precision. In seconds, he closes the distance, sword poised for a decisive strike. The blade swings in a clean arc toward Carl, yet the divine staff reacts instantly, forming a shimmering shield barrier around its wielder. Sparks erupt where steel meets magic as the sword grinds against the protective layer. Carl's eyes widen as recognition strikes. This is Suyang. Seeing an opening, Carl attempts to counterattack. His staff surges with power, but the blow lands uselessly. The strikes crash against Suyang's form, yet the effect is nullified by the demonic artifact he wears, the Demon's Roar. Its permanent enchantment grants him a state of super armor, making him immune to control skills while reducing all damage taken by half. Carl, still confident in his strength, scoffs and asks what Suyang could possibly hope to achieve. The answer comes wordlessly. Suyang's arms tighten and the ancient sword presses harder against the barrier. The protective shell begins to tremble, fine cracks spreading across its surface. With a final surge of force, the barrier shatters. The blade drives deep into Carl's body, piercing through him in an instant. Life drains from his eyes and his grip on the staff loosens. The weapon slips free from his fingers, and Suyang catches it effortlessly. The smirk on his lips carries both satisfaction and finality. He remarks that with the divine artifact now in his possession, the journey has been far from wasted. With Carl dead, the golden branches binding Lucifer dissolve into thin air. She steps forward, feeling the sudden absence of restraint and realizing that the elf must already be dead. The thought unsettles her. She finds it difficult to believe that Suyang has defeated an opponent she herself could not overcome. Approaching him, she asks what exactly he had done in those final moments. Suyang meets her gaze briefly and tells her that there are some things she does not need to know, adding that the matter is settled and they should leave. Lucifer reflects on the fight. Carl Lorenz, wielder of a divine artifact, stood only half a step away from divine rank and power. Against him, she had been locked in a hard-fought battle with no clear advantage. Yet Suyang had ended in a single encounter. The event defies logic and cannot be explained by common sense. In her mind, she affirms that this is truly the king's proxy, Suyang, someone whose depths even she can no longer fully understand. Suyang begins walking away, the holy artifact staff resting firmly in his grip. His steps are unhurried, as if the battlefield behind him is already of no concern. From the side, Tangan struggles to remain upright, forcing himself to speak. He calls out for Suyang to stop, addresses him respectfully, and thanks him for his assistance. Tangan then states that to be able to command the strongest Sin monarch, Suyang must be someone of extraordinary identity. A faint smile curves his lips as Suyang turns only half his face toward Tangan. The glimpse is enough to make Tangan go in a state of shock. A murmur escapes him, words questioning if it could truly be the person he suspects. Far away, in the throne room of the Elven Kingdom, the queen rises suddenly from her seat. A sharp sensation runs through her as she realizes that the life signs of both Andal and Carl Lorenz have vanished entirely. Shock and disbelief ripple across her face as she wonders how such a thing could have happened. She shouts through the chamber, demanding to know what has occurred on Earth. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's goal is 1,500 likes. Comment next part down below for the next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to finance support me and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.